Clashes have broken out between demonstrators and police in Paris on the 23rd Saturday of Yellow Vest protests. Officers fired tear gas and nearly 200 people in the latest anti-government rally. The protesters have been banned from the area around the Champs-Élysées and the burnt Notre-Dame Cathedral. Our Europe regional editor Danny Eberhard reports.
It's week 23 of the Yellow Vest protests, and the first since Monday's catastrophic fire in Notre-Dame Cathedral. But if the authorities hoped that that disaster heralded a moment of newfound unity, they were wrong. Political tensions continue to smoulder, erupting into clashes on the streets of Paris. A group of protesters set motorbikes alight in one area. The violence was nothing like the scale of the riots in December. One protester said radical elements had hijacked a mostly peaceful demonstration.
You can see that there are people who are not necessarily here out of the same convictions we have, for peaceful reasons. We should be able to move around everywhere, but it's true, it's not very pleasant doing this. We can't protest as we would like, so it's getting tense.
Anger remains, though. Some of it this week was directed against the colossal sum, about $1 billion, raised in just days to restore Notre-Dame. Demonstrators have criticised the ease with which billionaires and corporations have funded huge donations for the fire-damaged cathedral, rather than to alleviate poverty. The fire and its aftermath temporarily displaced the Yellow Vests from centre stage. It broke out moments before a key televised address by France's President, Emmanuel Macron. He was forced to postpone the speech, which was to outline measures the government would take arising out of a recent national consultation. The so-called Great Debate had provided citizens with a space to air their grievances. Mr. Macron is now expected to address the issue on Thursday. Danny Eberhard, BBC News.
CNN international correspondent Melissa Bell is in Paris with the latest. So, Melissa, these protests, or some form of these protests, have been taking place for now 6 months. But what's different today? What has been the new, if there is a new catalyst to these disruptions?
Well, we had been expecting today to be more violent, better attended by Yellow Vests than the last few weeks, simply because they had made this a massive call for what they were hoping would be a Black Saturday. And as you can see just behind me here, Place de la République, that's what they've achieved. We've seen pretty big numbers coming out. We don't yet have the official Interior Ministry numbers of how many people they believe have come out to protest. But from what we've seen, there are a lot of them out here, not just here on the Place de la République, but they've been blocked off from the main arteries by the police in a sort of pincer movement to try and separate them. Not only are there a lot of them, Federica, but they are very determined. There is a lot of tear gas being thrown by the police to try and push them back. Regularly, the police front lines, the riot police charge them. As you can see right here, it seems to be happening once again. It happens regularly. And then the rioters then push back to get as close as possible. What's added to that, Federica, beyond the call of the Yellow Vests to come out in greater numbers than they'd achieved, frankly, these last few weeks, for this Easter weekend, is what happened on Monday. Far from dampening these protests down, far from taking the winds out of the sails of this particular protest this Saturday, the fire at Notre-Dame led to, as you know, we've been reporting these last few days, Federica, huge amounts of donations pouring in to help restore the cathedral. We're at nearly $1 billion of donations that have been given, many of them by some of France's richest families. Some of those families giving 230 million euros a time. And what the Yellow Vest protesters have been saying these last few days on French media, but also on social media, is that, look, how can we live in a country where some people have that much money that they can donate? So in a sense, curiously, these last few days have really spoken to the sorts of inequalities that have been at the heart of their protests ever since they began on November 17th. And I think what's interesting, I'm just going to let you have a look again at these pictures, which have been really quite dramatic over the course of the afternoon, is that time and time again, the French government has tried to get a handle on this. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has made concessions. He's raised the minimum wage. He's lowered the price of fuel, which was one of their key requests. This is how this all began. It was a hike in the fuel tax. Nothing has worked. Nothing has dampened down their protests. There have been fewer of them, but they hadn't stopped protesting. And I think what we've seen these last few days is really this fueling their fire, this making them even angrier possibly than they were before.
All right, Melissa Bell, we'll check back with you there from Paris. Appreciate it. And now, just 2 days after the release of the redacted